Well, today I'm in a lovely part of Australia. I'm on the northern tablelands of New South Wales, just outside Tenterfield. It's towards the end of April, so autumn is here. We've got a changing of the leaves, and I'm at the Donegal Farm stay. Now, shortly we're going to go through the gates and head down to the homestead and chat to the owner, who also works in the Hunter Valley coal mines, has the farm here and runs a Airbnb farm stay accommodation, and has made the choice to move to an electric vehicle. He owns a Kia EV6, so we'll be talking about what things he looked at in making the choice to buy the Kia, and also if there's any challenges in owning an EV living in a regional area. So stay with us. So today I've been on a regional EV road trip, and we're in Tenterfield, or just outside Tenterfield, at a place called Sandy Flat, and I'm really privileged to visit the Donegal Farm stay. And this is Simon. So Simon and his partner own Donegal's Farm stay here. Beautiful little spot on the outskirts of Tenterfield. We'll have a bit of a look around the farm stay a little later. But Simon's kindly volunteered to tell us a little bit about living in a regional area of New South Wales, having the business here, and also owning this beautiful Kia EV6. So welcome to the channel, Simon. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Greg, and thanks for coming out to visit.
No, it's been a long time coming. I ran into Simon down at Fully Charged Live in Sydney early in March, which was a great event. And we did record an interview down there, but unfortunately the sound wasn't the best. So made the trip back down to Tenterfield from Brisbane today to catch up again. So Simon, tell us a little bit about living in regional New South Wales, running a business. You still work part-time as well down in Muswellbrook, and we'll get into a bit more of that later, because that's where this guy earns its keep, running between Tenterfield. But yeah, look, what made you sort of settle in Tenterfield, start the business?
Well, I spent pretty well all my adult working life in the bush and regional areas. So I worked up in the Gulf for quite a few years and worked out of Rockhampton for a consultancy for a while, and ended up coming down to manage a property at Glen Innes.
Okay,
and,
which is just down the road.
Just down the road from here. We're managing a beef cattle place down there, and looking for my own block, and at that time my partner, and we were together, so we ended up buying this block up here at Tenterfield, and decided to develop it up, build a house on it, and run a farm, and we're now doing a few other things as a farm style. So and to help us with that, we did what a lot of guys do, or farmers do in the bush. When you need to get a bit of money, you go off mining. So we went mining for 2 years to get some cash together to build the house, and 14 years later I'm still doing it part-time.
But you've certainly got a beautiful house and property and facility here, and we'll come down and actually stay. We'll bring the kids down and we'll stay, and we'll do another video a bit more around the farm stay, and also the awesome solar system that Simon's got. So today we'll sort of more focus on the car, but I think it's really interesting because you won't be a typical EV/owner driver, and probably different to my regular viewers who majority live in a metropolitan city area. You're doing shorter sort of runs, so you've chosen an EV, and you've found that it does the job. Yep.
So I am unusual, I suppose, or both of us, me and my husband, are unusual in the fact that most of our driving is long distance driving or highway driving. As I said, I still work down in the mines part time, so I drive down to the Hunter Valley every couple of weekends, and every 2 weeks, and which is a 500k trip there and back. So it's 1,000 k's basically every fortnight.
So that's big distances, isn't it?
It is big distances.
Most people in Australia, I think the average is something crazy like 80 kilometres, something a day.
Although we do, obviously when we're here, we do trips into town. Tenterfield's about 20 k's away, so that's more of a, you know, what most people would be doing. I've had this car for a year now. We've racked up about 39,000 kilometres on it, and yeah, we do these big trips. So the effective range on this GT line, when you're talking about highway driving, and it's the New England highway, so it is up and down and round corners, and it's not the most efficient driving, so about 440 k's if you filled it up and went right to zero. So to get that 500k trip, I'll stop at either Armidale or Tamworth, charger there, and just do a top-up charge, just enough to get me there. And then when I'm down there where I stay, I'll charge it up there and do the reverse on the way back. So,
okay. So, and we'll show you some of the chargers. So you've got the farm stays, so you're got the provision of services for people to visit with an EV, so you've got multiple different charging options, and we'll show you some of those in some footage shortly. So you've got no problems charging at home.
No, so when we had the B&B about 4 years ago, Tesla was promoting their destination chargers, so they provided a couple of those for us to make available for guests, for Tesla guests. And since then, I now have a Fronius Watt Pilot, similar to your one, but this is one fixed in place. So that's the main charger I use for this car. It's a smart charger. It talks to a Fronius inverter here. But we also have an ocular charger, which is it's not a smart charger, but it's available here at the B&B unit. And I think in the last month or so, we've had about 3 EV owners come and stay. So that's available for them. So we've sort of got all the colours and all the sizes of chargers now.
So you pretty much got every charger option. So, and you can also cater for J1772. So if you've got like the Nissan Leaf or the Outlander plug-in hybrids, etc., and they've got their lead, they can plug that in. And you also mentioned you've even got a 3-phase portable charger as well that was for your own use. So
so I guess it was when I first got the car, I also ordered from EVSE, I got a 3-phase portable charger which plugs into your 32 amp 4-pin 3-phase plug. And that's, if I've been to trips, went to a trip over to Narrabri a few months ago, and they don't have a fast charger over there at the moment, so I took that with me and plugged it in at the pub for 4 hours just to get enough to get back to Glen Innes. So that's becoming less of an issue now. They've got a charger at Inverell now, NRMA's installed one there. Narrabri's getting one soon. It's actually on the supercharger list too for Tesla to get one later this year, I think. So these regional chargers are starting to pick up the pace.
That's right, they're starting to roll out. If you want to know where chargers are, probably the easiest way is to check out the PlugShare app. So that's an app that's downloadable in the Android store or the Apple. It's Apple too, isn't it? I think, So you can find any chargers in Australia with that out of interest.
And I think if you're travelling in a regional area, the 2 apps you want to have is PlugShare. So PlugShare will tell you which of the fast chargers are working usually, particularly with NRMA that doesn't have their own app yet, although apparently there's one coming. So it's really handy to go ahead and check ahead if the chargers are operational, if there's a fault with them. And a better route planner, really, really good tool to tell you, where you've got to stop on the way and how far you can go and the best route available. So they're the 2 apps I use.
And it's pretty well developed, that a better route planner, isn't it? Because you can put your car model in as well, as you can with PlugShare. But you can customise and put in your
and really accurate. Models. So within 2 or 3% of your battery capacity, I found it super accurate.
So that'll give you a little bit of comfort that there is a bit more planning involved when you own an EV, particularly when you're driving it in regional areas. But those couple of apps will really help you out. So Simon, EVs, there's a lot more in the market now. What made you decide to buy the Kia? What were the things that really, because particularly this is a little bit higher end, so this is chalk and cheese compared to my MG ZS, so we're talking the more premium end of the market.
Yeah, so it is a little bit more on the sort of probably a little bit more money than I was expecting to pay at the time. My commute car up until this point to drive down to the mines had been a 10-year-old Fiesta, so this was a little bit of an upgrade. Basically, I'd been very interested in EVs for a while. I was keen to, that was my interest to see what was available. So it came down to looking at what the Tesla Model 3, why it wasn't available at the time that I was looking. I was looking at the EV6 or the Ioniq 5, and the Polestar was probably the other option, because at the end of the day I still did need the range. So it really had to be about that sort of nominal 500k range that I was looking for. So all great cars. I found, looking at the Polestar, at that stage I didn't feel that the Polestar 2 that was available at that time quite had the charging speed and quite had the range I was after. The Tesla certainly did, but I suppose it comes down to a personal taste thing. That for me and my husband, we liked the styling on the EV6. The reviews on the ride quality and the road holding had been really good. There were a few reviews out there saying the Tesla Model 3 was probably suspension was probably a little bit too hard, and particularly for the roads out here, you're really looking for something that's going to give you a bit of comfort. And the seats in this, the reviews on that were pretty good as well. And probably the other thing we were considering was the fact that it's still set up as a conventional driving experience car inside, so you've still got knobs and buttons and levers and things to press and whatever, and for us that's what we were comfortable with. So that's a personal taste thing. So I actually was lucky to the ordering process I went through. I was actually lucky to get on the list for one of the Kia dealerships out here, and basically got one of the first cars. So super lucky. I actually had an order in for a Tesla Model 3 by then as well, which I kept. So I did own a Tesla Model 3 for about a week and a half in September last year, and I was able to compare the two.
So you had that in the shed as well.
Yeah, so both really good cars. I think you just have to make a decision about what suits you and what you're comfortable with. So
we were just chatting about the Cupra Born earlier, saying it's got that a bit aggressive, racy sort of styling, and that's definitely sort of shown in the EV6, isn't it? It's got that bit of a mean sort of look on the road, whereas the Tesla is...
And it is a personal taste thing too, Greg, because the Ioniq 5 is, as you'll know, the EGMP platform that Hyundai and Kia are using. It's the same skateboard design, underpinning everything inside the same drive motors. Everything else is the same. Really, the difference between the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 is all about the body. And the cabin experience. And for us, I preferred the EV6 look to the Ioniq 5 look. So again, it's going to be a personal taste.
It is a big personal taste, and again, the Teslas, it is a bit of a culture shock for some people that don't necessarily like that real minimalistic design. So you sit in that Tesla and literally everything's controlled by that centre sort of screen and displayed on the centre screen. So if you do like a more conventional sort of look, the non-Tesla vehicles are potentially the option.
I suppose it was more of a technical issue. I was quite attracted to the 800 volt architecture in these EGMP cars as well. What that does give you is when you go to the very, very fast charges, the 350 kilowatt charges, it does give you that 80-minute charge from from 20% to 80%. That's less of an issue out here when you're in regional areas, because we only have the 50 and the 75 kilowatt fast chargers available to us. So it doesn't really make a difference between to this and other cars. Teslas now have more availability for the superchargers out here, like the one in Tenterfield too. So,
but it might be a consideration for your resale value, because these cars will not necessarily age as much in that space. So as we do get more and more of those big 350 kilowatt chargers around, these vehicles on that 800 volt architecture are sort of future proofed for the future. But
and the other thing, I suppose the other point too that we considered at the time was the ability to have vehicle to load. So this car has the ability to plug in a socket into the charging point, and that gives you 3.2 kilowatts of available power that you can use for whatever you happen to like. So you can run a kettle or a microwave. And we do have the occasional power outage out here. So we've used it 3 times now where we've had a scheduled power outage as it is, and we've been able to run all the fridges and freezers and either the kettle or the microwave in the house as well. But obviously we can't plug that into the house wiring, we've got to run extension leads, but it does just make it a bit more convenient rather than dragging our petrol generator up there to do it. So.
100%. And again, when you're comparing different cars, there's some cars and brands that will allow that and some that don't. Picking on Tesla again, they don't currently allow that or provide that. I think at some point in the future they will. But comparing it against the MG4, which is obviously a lot cheaper, more compact vehicle, the vehicle to load facility in those guys is only about 2,200 watts. So yeah, at that over 3,000 watts, that's a decent amount of output.
You can run a few things, and it's although we haven't been out camping in this vehicle, you could certainly take that out there and run your kettle and your fridge and some lights or whatever you needed to do if you're out camping. So.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the backup power supply is going to again be a big advantage for certain people. If you're in areas where you do get power outages, or even in regional areas, so you've got a cabin that you might go to, or a farm hut, and you've got some basic sort of LED lighting in there, etc. You can actually wire up similar to a caravan. So with a caravan, you'll plug in your lead. You can actually do that with a building if you get an electrician to wire up your cabin or your building with an actual inlet. So you could run a lead from your car's vehicle to load, plug it into the side of the cabin, and voila, your cabin is run by your car.
Yeah, it's I suppose this viewing, as we move into the future, viewing EVs as being batteries on wheels. So they're your mode of transport, but they're also the ability to provide a battery backup to other things you might be using as well. So.
Particularly with the cars with the bigger batteries. So you're not sort of, if I started doing that with my little car too much, the next thing I wouldn't have enough charge or battery to get to the charger.
I think we used for the day, we were running the house, I think we had about 3 fridges and 2 freezers and morning tea and the stuff that we're using through the day. Yeah, so it used about 3% of the battery to do that through the day. Yeah. So it's for these bigger batteries, it's not that big a draw. So,
no, that's fantastic.
So Greg, down here at the accommodation unit, we've got an ocular charger. This is a dumb charger, so you just plug it in and charges as required. I just turn it on there and it should come up to about 20 amps. So it's plenty of lead on this one, and just plug straight in there.
So plug and play, we just pop the and the charge port on the EV6 is on, would say, the driver's side, on the rear?
The driver's side, yeah. And you see the lights flashing now, so that's charging away. And this is connected through to our solar system. So with the sun sort of out today, we're effectively charging the car on solar.
Yep, one of the other great benefits of EVs and solar, you can make your own fuel at home. And there we go, we're pulling 11 kilowatts. which is pretty much the maximum on the 3-phase charger.
Yep, that's the maximum on this, and pretty well. I think the maximum that any AC charging will work on any car available in Australia. I believe the Polestar 4 that they just announced will be doing 22 kilowatt charging. So this is the all-wheel drive version. So you've got a motor in the back and also one in the front. And the motor sits just under here. So you have a very, very small front. Just enough to keep a few knickknacks in there, really. The rear-wheel drive version of the EV6 has a bigger front in it. So
just a little storage compartment there.
Yeah, just a little storage compartment.
Bits and pieces.
You know, that probably is one of the advantages of the Tesla, is they've got their front storage much better organised. You know, you've got to get in here, and you really only thing to service or access or look at is the coolant and the brake fluid, and you've got your 12-volt battery sitting there as well. But the rest of it's effectively wasted space. So I think Kia could improve what they're doing there and give you a bit more space.
Yeah, we need to get those engineers and the designers talking together a bit better, don't we, to make some more space. But again, when you're paying the extra dollars for these sorts of cars, you've got twin gas struts on the bonnets, which all those little things add up. On my MG with the cheaper models, you've got the old stick you've got to pull up, etc. So again, you'll notice these little bits and pieces, but they do make a big difference when you're paying the extra dollars. So Simon's just raised a really good point, and I've mentioned this a couple of times in other videos. Even though it's an EV, it still has a 12-volt regular car battery, because obviously that needs to boot up the computers to get the car underway and run your headlights and all that sort of stuff. And if you have a dead 12-volt battery, you're not going anywhere. So these are great, these little things. So what's this one, Simon?
So this is a King's one. I think it cost me $120 or something. It's just a fantastic backup. So if you do have a failing battery, 12-volt battery, and if you're driving a nice car, terrific thing to have. We've got this one and also in our Land Cruiser. And the other day in town, the Land Cruiser battery died. And Greg had this in there, and he popped it out and charged it straight away, or got it started straight away. So can't recommend these things enough. Lifesaver, gets you out of a lot of trouble. So just keep one handy, whatever car you got. So,
absolute good point. It's a lot better than a set of jumper leads. So chuck the jumper leads out, spend a couple of $100 and buy one of these, and you can jumpstart diesels, V8s, you can even jumpstart trucks, the bigger capacity ones. So definitely worth buying.
I think the Ioniq 5s have got a lot more problems with these dying batteries.
12 volts?
Yeah. And there is a problem. It's a software problem, I think they've identified, and so I went out and got one straight away. Yeah, but the app that runs with the Hyundai cars, and it's polling the computer about 60 times a minute, once every second, and every time it polls the vehicle computer, it drains the battery. Yeah. So obviously we don't have an app with these ones out here, so we haven't got the problem.
So the EV6 is obviously a hatch, so nice wide opening there, motorised liftgate. So again, this is where the quality comes through. Nice big beefy twin motorised lifters there. Quite a big sort of boot, but goes up nice and high out of the way, and heaps of space in there. We've got the 3 hooks for child seats, 3 individual headrests there. Nice rubber seals, good quality seals there. You can see this vehicle regularly travels on a gravel, dusty road, and you can see that dust is sealed nicely in there, or sealed out we should say. You've got skid plates there for loading stuff, and a nice rubber mat. So yeah, we've got the 60-40 split seats there, and look, nice flat. Hopefully you can see that there. We've got pretty much a flat loading bay there.
And if you when you do put the seat back up, Greg, you can make the back adjustable as well. So it's actually got adjustable backrest depending on how the passenger wants to sit.
That's great. So yeah, you can get the back seat nice and comfy. We've got lots of luggage hooks in there. We've got a 12-volt outlet there with 180 watts of capacity, so that's great. More luggage hooks down there. That's our granny charger, I'm assuming, there in the case. Yep, fantastic. And do we have any space underneath the spare wheel, I take it?
No spare in these. Most larger ICE cars these days don't come with a spare or even a skinny spare wheel. But again, there is a little bit of space under here.
Yep, just for leads or something.
Yeah, just for leads. Yeah, in the entry level EV6, it doesn't have a big subwoofer in the car, and there is a little bit more room under here. This is the cover, storage for the cover that can go over the back there as well.
Okay, so that's the little blind, just slots in there and pulls through your privacy blind. So you guys are set to rock. You've got the subwoofer in there, and I noticed the nice sound system inside.
It's a pretty good sound system. So
okay, that'd be a selling point for me. Yeah. Okay, let's jump inside and we'll have a chat about all those little bits and pieces in the car. Well, here we are, we're in the cockpit of the EV6. Now this is not a full detailed review. There's lots of other EV channels that'll do way better at me than reviewing the car, but what we wanted to do is just talk to Simon today about owning the car, what he finds is really good, any things that he's a bit disappointed in. But this cockpit is fantastic in comparison to the MG ZS. How do you find it, Simon? It's a beautiful driving car. That's one of the big bonuses I've found from it. It's a GT, and as the name suggests, it's a Grand Tourer, and it is a lovely driving car on the highway. Very comfortable, and you get to the end of a 5-hour drive, like I do to work, feeling like you've actually had a good experience. So like if you're used to driving a Tesla, then it's probably going to look like a very crowded cockpit to what you can used to. If you're coming from a conventional ICE car, or particularly a high-end car, you're going to be very familiar with what you see here. So, up here you've got your lights. You've got a for the very rare occasions when you're driving along and you want to open the roof, which I can't imagine happens very often, you've got that as well. I actually find it quite useful with the roof shut, but just having this part open so you can see the sky. So obviously if you're in a Tesla, you're going to get that anyway because you have the glass roof on it here. That's right.
But here in the summer, and Australian summers where we do have the sun beating down a bit, you can close that up.
Yeah, that's right, and I find that we have the blind closed in our MG the majority of time.
So down here, it's we've got the dual purpose at the moment. The fan's going flat out, so I'll turn that back down. But you've got the dual purpose control panel here, so this works as the cabin climate control, but also swapping it over, you can access the radio and the audio system as well.
So they're tactile type buttons, aren't they?
Yeah,
you get
that's right. So you bring up your map or your nav, or if you want to play the radio, or if you're listening to, Bluetooth, you can Bluetooth off your phone, all those sort of things as well. So
So yeah, that transition from your regular sort of car to this is going to be pretty seamless, isn't it? You're not learning new menus and that sort of stuff because you've got a majority of buttons. So.
Everything's where you'd expect it to be in a conventional car. You know, you can operate your phone, you can operate your cruise control, so it's got adaptive cruise control as well, which are becoming standard with any high-end car these days. Yeah, and you obviously can operate your audio system from just on the steering wheel. It has got a heads-up display as well, which is a new one to me. But yeah, it does allow you to keep your eyes on the road, even just the difference from looking on the dash up there, the heads up as well. So. And
I noticed you've got a chip in the windscreen and crackers,
yes.
Same as I copped one when I went to Fully Charged Live.
Yeah, so I picked that actually the same trip. We went in a Fully Charged Live and we picked that up on the way down there. So far, I've had the crack in there for, it's been a couple of months now, and it actually hasn't got any bigger, so must be good windscreens.
So EV windscreens cracked exactly the same as a petrol or diesel?
Yeah, and if it gets worse, we have to do something about it, we'll get it sorted out then. So in the meantime, it's fine.
All good. I like these patterns. There's a little design things that have gone into it there. Your little tweeters in the corner. You've got vents there, obviously to put some warm onto the windows. So climate control, you find that all?
Yep, so climate control works fine. Yeah, it's just set it up as you go along. Don't think about it.
Vents. So again, they look reasonably conventional sort of.
Yeah,
vents.
so if you're on your Tesla and you're used to operating changing all the vents through the screen, that's fine. Here you can just do it manually. Move the vents around. You've got the Meridian sound system again. It's about 5-6 speakers just in the front panel, a couple in the doors. So
got your mood lighting down there as well.
Yeah, so and this changes. So at the moment we're in normal drive mode. If we change it to sport mode, it goes red. So on this particular GT line, you can get 0 to 100 in just over 5 seconds.
Wow!
So you put it in red there, and you impress all your friends by knocking them back in the seat. The GT, which has just become available or to order anyway, they'll give you 3.5 seconds 0 to 100. But realistically, when you're driving down, normally driving on the road, you're either in eco mode, which just gives you a slightly steadier acceleration, or you're driving in normal mode. It's regenerative braking on this car as well. You've got 4 different levels you can operate on. For me, I keep it in the highest level of regen braking on auto, and the car looks after it all. So most of the time you're driving on the one pedal, just as you would in a Tesla, and you just don't use the brake. The interesting thing about electric cars is that in the city cycle, you're actually going to get better range because you do a lot more speeding up and slowing down, which the regen braking effectively captures and puts back in the battery. When you're doing highway driving, obviously most of the time you're just cruising along, so you're going up hills and down hills, and it will capture some of that, but not to the same extent. So that's why your range tends to be a little bit less when you're doing highway driving in EVs.
No, that's right. And so we talked a bit about the driving experience. It's a really nice car to drive, like a driver's car. You don't have a tow bar, so you're not sort of using it, because we did mention, and I seen up there, it wouldn't be a genuine Aussie farm without a Land Cruiser there, so you've still obviously got a couple of other vehicles for that sort of stuff. So this is pretty much the road car.
Yep. So this is we're going somewhere for a drive, or we're just nipping into town, that sort of stuff. So this is the car we're going to take. But for our situation, I think for many other families as well at the moment, that there are uses that this car is more suitable for us. But we've got to do towing a horse float, or we've got to go into town and cut some heavy stuff out, then the Land Cruiser is going to be with us for a fair while yet.
Yeah, the old 80-20 rule. This car will probably do 80% of what you're doing, won't it? But you need something else.
Exactly, yeah. So, it doesn't mean to say that you're going to throw away all the old tools that you've had in the past. I think, we're still going to have a use case for the diesel Land Cruiser for a few years yet. I think there's some exciting things going on in battery technology and utes coming up in the future, and we'll address those at the time. But for the moment, this is the touring car, this is the driving car, this is the going to work commute car for me, and we'll keep the ute going for a few years yet.
No, that's the way to do it. So as we've shown, you know, you can live in a regional area. This car does the daily trip on a bit of gravel road. There's a few corrugations, etc. Handles that really well. Also handles the highway and the road trips really well. So you just need to think about what your vehicle's doing for you. And again, you won't get a vehicle that'll do everything, but EVs will do a big chunk of it, and they'll do it a lot more economically and potentially sustainable well if you can charge from your solar.
We had a B&B guest just last month. They just bought they had a BYD at 03 for about a month. They've been driving it around Brisbane and got used to it there, and coming out here for this weekend here with the kids, it was their first big road trip. Yeah. They stopped at Warwick at the charger there for a charge, learned a few things about how to do that. And then when they went on from here, they went down to Coffs Harbour, and they said, this is the first trip for us. We were obviously having to think about it a little bit more and a little bit anxious. But even by the time they got here and they found that they could charge here and do all those things, once they got past that initial concern, got used to it, they were happy to do it. So
yeah, and we touched a little bit on it earlier about charging. That is the advantage of Teslas. They do have that fantastic supercharger network. So if you do buy a non-Tesla, you don't have access to that charge network, so you need to probably do a little bit more planning.
We always leave here with probably about 90% charge. Most of the time we keep it at about 80% if we're not using the car much, but you know, the majority, if you're driving, if you're around home, will just be charging at home. And we've now, the coal mine that I working down the Hunter, there's now 4 or 5 Teslas that people are driving, commuting up to from Newcastle often, and they've got enough charge to get from Newcastle up to the Muswellbrook and back, just on the charge they got in the car, and they just charge at home when they get home. So it's you know, long distance driving, which I do, which is unusual. It's not the usual process. Yeah.
No, and as we mentioned at the start of the video, Simon would not be the normal EV owner, living in regional areas and also working in a coal mine. So we need to take out of the discussion there's this competitive thing between EV owners and petrol or diesel owners. EVs are a vehicle to do a job, and they're no different to a petrol or diesel vehicle in doing that. It's just that it's a different drivetrain. And we were chatting earlier that pretty much that internal combustion engine technology has been developed over a number of years. It's a fantastic technology, but it's pretty much at the end of its development cycle. And now we're really coming into electric drivetrains, etc. So it's really a vehicle to get you from A to B. So if you need a new vehicle and you're considering an EV, I'd recommend you just educate yourself. Talk to people like Simon who own EVs already and they use them in practical day-to-day situations, and don't necessarily believe what the naysayers are saying, or particularly even your salesperson, because sometimes that salesperson is just looking to get the sale, not necessarily looking at what you need the vehicle to do.
I suppose for me, I'm interested in the technology. It's a car that's practical for my situation, even out here, because I can do the trip. We have the infrastructure, we have the chargers at home. So almost all the charging I do at home now is from solar, and I'm aware that when I'm down in the Hunter Valley, probably some of the charging down there is coming from coal-fired power stations. That's going to change over time, but the reality is that whether it comes from coal or whether it comes from wind or whether it comes from solar, it's all Australian produced power, and I'm pleased the what I'm using is Australian produced power rather than being imported from overseas.
Yeah, it's a good point. We won't get into it too much in the video, but I'm glad you brought it up, because it is something that we're heavily reliant on, imported oil. And don't let's forget to refine oil into petrol and diesel, which are the fuels that we need to consume in our vehicle. There's a whole lot of coal, electricity and energy that's used to do that as well. So it's far more efficient to have an electric drivetrain, even if you are generating that electricity from coal. It's a lot more efficient well-to-wheel, as they say, process than it is refining crude oil, importing that refined product into Australia, shipping it all over the country. It's a lot more efficient to have an EV.
Yep.
Well, look, Simon, thanks very much. I won't take up any more of your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to come down and visit your fantastic property. As I said, we'll be back again. We'll be bringing the kids down to have a run around, meet all the animals. We'll chat more about EVs. Also solar. Simon's got a great solar system here who a little birdie tells me he's actually upgrading it, so it's going to be even better. And lots of integrated smart technologies, chargers and all that sort of stuff. So if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button if you've liked the video, so you don't miss those upcoming videos. And really interested to hear your comments. Are you in the market for an EV6? Smart charging, that sort of stuff, does that interest you? Do you live in a regional area and considering an EV? So Simon and I would be really interested to hear your thoughts on today.
Yep.
Thanks again, Simon, and I really appreciate you watching. Thanks very much. I'll leave some links in the show notes to some of the stuff we've talked about today, but that's it. Take care, stay safe, look after your friends and family, and we'll talk soon.